Hello and welcome everyone to the 5th webinar of the Arab Alumni Association 2021 webinar series. My name is Mamoun Toukan. I serve as treasurer of the MIT AAA, a volunteer-run association that was established to connect MIT to the Arab world and create a space for alumni to collaborate. It is truly an honor to be moderating today's session titled Omnichannel Education, the Future Landscape of Higher Education, where we will be looking at how MIT is disrupting and reinventing higher education through programs like the MicroMasters. We'll also be learning about the current offerings of the program, the MicroMasters program by MIT, and how these programs are being perceived by industry. This webinar is sponsored by Hygiene. And what we hope to achieve through this webinar is to help our listeners realize how education, and I mean really good education, is extremely accessible today for those who seek it, of course. And the MITx courses are just one of them. So a while back, Dr. Eva Ponce, who's also an expert in omnichannel strategies at the MIT Center for Transportation and Logistics, wrote an article about future trends in education and drawing similarities with retail. We have all seen how retailers today are offering multiple buying channels or omni-channels for the convenience of their customers. A similar trend is transforming education, with the most visible being the popularity of MOOCs, or massive open online courses, as well as programs based on MOOCs. So MIT has been at the forefront of this transformation with a number of initiatives. First, with providing educational materials online through MIT OpenCourseWare, then to co-founding edX alongside Harvard back in 2012, an education platform currently with over 3,000 MOOCs taught by 15,000 instructors from 160 institutions and reaching 100 million course enrollments from over 35 million users. Talk about scale. MIT piloted and launched the first MicroMasters program on the edX platform in supply chain management. The MicroMasters is an online professional and academic credential that aims to advance learners' career or fast-track a master's degree. We'll be hearing more about these straight from MIT's director of the MicroMasters program. So I believe today's topic is extremely relevant in today's world, and not just because of COVID's impact on accelerating digital transformation, but because how much the world is changing and evolving, requiring us to constantly seek knowledge and to stay relevant and adapt and advance in our careers. It feels like becoming a life learner will be a must in the future. The event will last for an hour and will be divided into 3 parts. So in the first part, we'll be hearing from our speakers, followed by some follow-up questions from myself to them. And finally, we'll open the floor for questions for Q&A. To participate in the Q&A, please type your questions in the Q&A tab below, and there will be no voice participation. So joining us are 3 exceptional speakers. Dr. Eva Ponce is the executive director of the MITx MicroMasters program in supply chain management. I was also privileged to be to be taught by her. Tracy Tan, the director of the MicroMasters program. Dan Covert, director of supply chain R&D for Delhaize USA's supply chain services, and an MIT alum of class of 2018, also a friend and a fellow classmate. Thank you all for being here today. Dr. Eva, let's start it off with you. Can you please introduce yourself, the journey of, or highlight what omnichannel is?
Excellent. Thank you, Mamoun, for having me. I'm really excited to be part of this panel today. As Mamoun said, Eva Ponce, I'm the executive director of the MITx, the MicroMasters program in supply chain management. and a research scientist at MIT, the Center for Transportation and Logistics. I'm leading different research initiatives in omnichannel distribution strategies, also now in omnichannel education. That's why I'm very excited to be here today about that, to talk about that, in circular supply chains. So I will start setting the stage of what is omnichannel education, and then I will also share our experience launching the first MicroMasters in supply chain management. So let me share my screen. And with that, perfect. So what is omnichannel education? So to start with this, I really want to take the student's perspective. So if we think in the traditional way to educate students, especially in the higher education space, typically students apply to be admitted in a college or university and comes to this institution in order to receive their degrees, in order to learn from the instructors, from the faculties in the institutions. However, online learning and online education has been revolutionizing the education landscape. And currently, thanks to online platforms and thanks to online programs, the institutions can come to the students, and students can receive this higher top level, high quality education almost from anywhere. They can receive this education from home. They can receive this education from while they are at work, while they are at the park, on the street, wherever. And this is thanks to the online learning, thanks to the online platforms, and thanks to the mobile devices that is allowing students to learn from many different ways and different formats. And I want to make here the analogy with the retail industry and the consumer goods industry, because customers are also facing now the same experience. Thanks to the growth of e-commerce, thanks to the use of mobile devices, customers can buy from many different places. We can buy from home, from work, from the street, wherever we are, and retailers are facing now the challenge to offer many different formats and buying channels to their customers. So I want to make this analogy because now institutions like MIT and many other institutions are facing now this challenge of offering multiple formats to educate their students. And this is what I want to represent here, these multiple channels. Our learners can learn now using their tablets, using their laptops, using their mobile phones. So many different formats, many different devices, and many different channels to deliver education to our learners. So as institutions, as instructors, this is a challenge. And the challenge we are facing now is which is the best format to deliver certain contents, which is the best format to develop certain skills for our professionals in the world, and which is the best way to offer these new channels that learners are also demanding in the education landscape. So this is how we understand and how we define omnichannel education, this combination of multiple formats and the challenge of deciding the best content for the right format, how to build skills, and how to educate the world using this technology and the combination of these different formats. At MIT, the Center for Transportation and Logistics, we started in 2014 offering the first massive open online course in supply chain management. And in 2015, we announced for the very first time, President Rafe made the announcement of the very first MicroMaster, not only at MIT, also in the world. This was the MicroMasters in supply chain management. Since then, we have been seeing a growing community of supply chain learners joining the program. Currently, we have more than 400,000 learners enrolled in any of our supply chain courses. We just awarded the 8th cohort of MicroMaster credential holders. We have about 3,000 credential holders now as part of the community. This is truly a global program. This is a program that we have learners from more than 190 different countries. And we are also very lucky to have more than 180 community teaching assistants helping us to run this program from every part of the world. The program has received different recognition from MIT to advanced online learning, also from QS. It was nominated as the best distributed program to nurturing 21st skills and professionals. So we have been at CTL working since then in offering different educational programs to our learners. So MicroMasters is 100% online. It's an asynchronous program. It's a flexible, accessible program that our learners can build their skills enrolling in any of our supply chain courses. All of them are massive open online courses. They can learn from these courses at their own pace. Is flexible. They can review the videos at any time, at work, at night, during the weekends. So it's really, really flexible and accessible. We have been also working in offering blended offer. This means that the very first part, the MicroMaster, as I mentioned, is a 100% online, asynchronous, flexible, your own pace program. Typically takes in between 12 to 18 months. But after completing that, we are offering also the opportunity to apply to MIT to complete a master's degree on ground, to be on campus for one full semester and complete this blended option that combines online asynchronous education with on-ground in-person education. In addition to the MIT opportunity, there are more than 20 pathways universities offering this blended opportunity to our learners. We are also offering these hybrid formats in, let's say, we call these small pills. Our learners can also enroll in just one course, one supply chain fundamental course or supply chain design course, and then come on campus or virtually attend to a live online experience. This is just 4 intense days to be exposed to the cutting edge technology, to the faculties at MIT, researchers, and be again combining the two things, the online asynchronous education that MicroMaster or MOOCs offer with some live interaction. This live interaction can happen on ground, on campus, or can be also virtual and have live events that allow us to have live discussion. So this is what we are working now in this portfolio of hybrid models, the combination of the different channels in order to try to take the best of the both worlds, the best of the asynchronous, flexible, accessible, a way to deliver content with the beautiful thing of having people discussing real time, online, on ground, and developing certain skills. So our vision for the future is to educate and upskill supply chain professionals to be competitive in a changing and very dynamic world. We truly believe in flexible, accessible education models. And I truly see the future as an omni-channel education models. I truly really see this future combining, as I mentioned, the best of both worlds and trying to provide flexible, accessible, and high quality also content education models to the learners and to the professionals. So this is all from my side, Mamoun. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Dr. Eva. This was great. Let's move on to Ms. Tracy. Can you tell us more about the MicroMasters program offered by MIT?
Sounds good. Thank you. And hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here today and to share our MicroMasters program with all of you. So my name is Tracy Tan. I'm the director of the MicroMasters program. I'm based at MIT Open Learning. Now let me share my screen. Great. Well, first, let me walk you through briefly what the MicroMasters is. I think Mamoun had mentioned briefly, but just let me repeat it a little bit. So a MicroMasters at MIT is a set of MIT graduate level courses, and they're offered entirely online. And the MicroMasters program leads to mastery of content and skills. Upon successful completion, learners would make defined professional progress or career advancement, and upon admission to a master's program, either at MIT or at our pathway school, they can accelerate their graduate study by receiving credits for the MicroMasters credential. So to enroll in the MicroMasters program, there's no admissions required. Anyone from anywhere can enroll and give a try. And once you finish a course, pass a course, and you earn a course certificate. And once you pass all the courses within a program and the associate assessments, you earn a program credential. Our MicroMasters program credential leads to a set of unique benefits, and you can learn more about these benefits from this web link. And currently, MIT is offering 5 MicroMasters topics. Besides the one that Eva just mentioned, supply chain management, we're also having topics in economics, manufacturing, data science, and finance. And each of these MicroMasters topic will lead to a corresponding master's program at MIT. So the supply chain management MicroMasters leads to a blended master's in supply chain management. And the econ MicroMasters leads to a master's in development economics. The manufacturing MicroMasters leads to a master's of engineering in advanced manufacturing. And the data science MicroMasters leads to a PhD program at MIT. And then the finance MicroMasters leads to a master's of finance. And so here I give you a screenshot of the courses and prices of the programs. So you can feel free to take a screenshot, as I'm not going to walk you through all the details. And you can also find the same information and even more details from this web link on the left-hand side. Our MicroMasters programs have made a great global impact. Over 1 million unique learners have enrolled from all over the world. And MIT has awarded over 70,000 course certificates. Over 4,000 learners have earned a program credential. And among these 4,000 people, over 170 learners have been admitted by MIT and have graduated from MIT with a master's degree. Besides the MIT internal masters I just mentioned, there are additional 45 universities in 30 countries are providing credits to our MicroMasters credential towards their master's program. So you can accelerate your graduate study there. And you can find out these 45 universities and their credit offerings from this web link. Our MicroMasters content has also become an integral part of a professional development at 15+ global organizations, meaning that these 15+ companies are using our MicroMasters content to train their workforce. And as an organization, we support learners from anywhere in the world to enroll into our program. And we also support universities to train their students by blending our content with their curriculum. And we're also supporting companies to upskill their workforce by bulk enrolling their employees into our program. So I listed this web link here where you can find out our specific support to universities and organizations. And if you have, your company have employees to bulk enroll, and please feel free to contact us by using this email on the slides. So I know this is really brief, and I'm going to pause here, and I look forward to hearing your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Let's move on to Dan. As an alumnus of the MicroMasters and the SEM blended program, can you give us some insights and maybe how is industry perceiving the MicroMasters credential as a standalone today?
Sure. Thanks, Mamoun, and thanks for inviting me. Definitely appreciate it. Nice to see everybody today. So let me start. Maybe I'll give a little bit of background on what I'm doing now, and then talk a little bit. I didn't prepare any slides, so I hope I don't talk too fast. But I'll try to keep this pretty high level, and then we can go into specifics later. But so right now, my name is Dan, as Mamoun mentioned. I live in Portland, Maine, northeast of the U.S. I work for Ahold Delhaize, which is a big global food retailer, and I lead R&D and innovation for supply chain in the U.S., which is a very exciting, fun job. We work on sort of data science and analytics projects in supply chain and robotics are sort of the focuses of my team right now. But sort of, I think to kind of go back to the MicroMasters and how I got here, I don't think when I was 8 years old, I grew up thinking I would be a R&D director for a big grocery store and have a career in supply chain management. It's not really like one of those jobs that people think about growing up, but there's a lot of people in this space. And I think, my undergraduate training was in physics and in math, which is not too different than supply chain management, but it's not supply chain management. So I found myself, after graduating from my undergrad in a supply chain role because it was a great application of what I had studied in undergrad. And I imagine there are a lot of people in similar positions that, have done other things and then find themselves in a role that's supply chain management focused without necessarily a formal background in that area. So, in 2014, I found myself in this role and was wondering what I could do to get better at my position. So I found myself working for Delhaize at the time. This was prior to our merger, leading a group of forecast analysts. And I knew sort of how our company did business, but I really didn't know what did good look like. What's some theory behind the work that I'm actually doing every day. And at that point in my life, I was considering going back to graduate school, didn't really know what the right path was. And through sort of happenstance, found the MicroMasters, and this was just as it was getting launched. And what I found most important about that program was that, thinking about going to graduate school, you can spend a lot of time studying for the GMATs. And that sort of seemed like a waste to me at that time because that knowledge isn't very useful. It's just a good sort of stamp of approval. But doing the MicroMasters, if it didn't work out at the end of the day that I didn't get to go to MIT and do the blended program, it was still incredibly useful for what I was doing. So I found myself in the first course, which was supply chain fundamentals. I think the first lecture is about something to do with demand planning. And that was exactly what I was doing at the time. So it was so applicable to what I needed in my career then. I was in a role, I was leading a team, but I didn't really know much beyond what my day-to-day work was. So being able to apply these concepts from the MicroMasters courses, I could immediately put it into what I was doing. So I was thinking about forecasting differently, thinking about how we were designing our network, all at the same time while I was doing my job, which was so beneficial. It was a lot of work, and I know Mamoun was going through sort of the same thing at a similar time. To do this while working full time is a lot, but it's not impossible. A lot of people do it. And it's also very motivating because each week we would learn a new topic that I could then apply to what I was doing. Is the sort of comparison is studying for a GRE or a standardized exam. Each week you're learning something that you're going to forget in a year because it's sort of irrelevant to what you're actually doing in your job. But everything in the MicroMasters I could immediately apply, which is a really nice thing because it really cements your knowledge. You're not only learning concepts and doing problem sets, but then you're applying it in a real world setting, which I thought was just a fantastic way to continue to learn. So I found myself going through that program. I think the MicroMasters was sort of getting stood up and sort of the road was being paved. I think Mamoun was on the road at the same time. The road was being paved as we were on it, and then found the opportunity to go do the blended masters at MIT, which I found to be an excellent sort of capstone to the MicroMasters. So the MicroMasters in and of itself is an excellent way to provide continued education to people that are working, that they can apply to what they're doing. It's also a great bridge to the blended masters program, which I sort of view as a capstone to the whole experience, because there's a lot of topics that are sort of best taught online through a MOOC. Like I think, a lot of the things like network design and some of the technical components of supply chain management are actually better taught through a MOOC than in a lecture hall. And then when I got the opportunity to go to MIT in 2018, It was much more strategic discussions where actually having a spirited debate with your colleagues really enhances your knowledge. So I really enjoyed the way that the program was split up, where I could learn all the sort of data-driven components of supply chain management while taking the MicroMasters, and then I could immediately sort of learn the more soft components, strategic components while I went and did the blended program. So sort of overall, I would absolutely recommend this as an opportunity for anyone. I think as I'm looking at hiring people in the future, the MicroMasters credential is certainly very important and stands out on a resume. That someone that's been able to continue their education while working is, a lot of people are doing it in that phase. And I know what the content is, and I know how useful it is in their day-to-day jobs. So certainly view that very highly and really value this experience. I think as I reflect on my career, this was one of the best pivot points that I've done, because it allowed me to first learn a bunch, meet a bunch of great people like Mamoun and Dr. Eva, and continue to build out this network, which is another sort of soft benefit of the MicroMasters and the program. Is not only do you learn a bunch, you get to have a great experience, but you also meet people from all over the world that are still connections that you can chat with about problems that you're facing in your business. So it's been an incredible experience, and happy to continue to be involved with this program, and really looking forward to discussing more on where this is going in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I think you've described it perfectly, where we've been, like myself, doing the program as well, and then into the blended master's program. I guess we can. I'll open up the floor now for discussion between us, and then when we move on to the audience Q&A. So my first question is, Dr. Eva, how was the, let's say, when we first started, it started off as the X series and then changed into the MicroMasters, and then the blended program was announced. Was this the plan all along, or was this a result of what has happened from the MOOCs that were offered?
This is a great question, Mamoun. Yes, let me share with you the story of that, because Chris Kaplis, that is the main instructor, started in 2014 offering the first MOOC. This was Supply Chain Fundamentals, and was just Chris and a half TA helping him to put this together. We had 40,000 learners enrolled in that course, and we were really surprised about that. So when we started with this first experience with one course, we say, okay, so then let's try to design a series of 3 courses. And then we design Supply Chain Fundamentals, Supply Chain Design, and Supply Chain Dynamics, just to close that. And we were happy with that. And then President Rafe called Josie Sheffy, Professor Sheffy, and Chris Kaplis in 2015 and said, hey, MIT is thinking about the first MicroMaster ever, and we want you to pioneer that. But a MicroMaster needs to be the first part for a master degree, and this means that needs to have at least 5 courses. So then we already have these 3 courses, and then we design and think about how to expand that. That's why we expand with supply chain analytics at the beginning, but was not intentional to call it SE0X, was by design, and because we design in that way. And then we added also supply chain technology because of the importance of managing the flows, the information flows, the data and big data, machine learning techniques. So finally, we invest a lot of time in designing, creating, and launching that, connected all of the dots and trying to make it it's a fundamental program. It's covered the foundations and the basic concepts, but definitely is comprehensive and trying to cover all of the main relevant aspects in supply chain. But this was part of the origin. So yes, we started with 3 courses, we expanded to 5, and finally we come up with this MicroMasters program.
And I guess it was a success that MIT decided to spin off more courses, right, Tracy? What was your expectations coming in, and what's your expectations now, let's say, for the future of the MicroMasters program?
Right. So I just answered the questions through the Q&A chat. Yes, I actually joined a little bit after the supply chain MicroMasters was launched. So I wasn't there to witness the creation of our very first. But I joined shortly after. So since then, we developed 4 more topics. As for the future, I think this is a very how to say, inspiring experience for both MIT faculty and leadership. So we have seen a growing, interest in creating more topics, and we're right now in the planning phase. Due to the disruption of pandemic, we were not able to launch any new MicroMasters, except for our finance MicroMaster, which was planned before the pandemic. But I think in the near future, the learners in the world should be able to see a few more topics coming from MIT.
So since you brought up the pandemic, have you seen an uptick in people taking courses?
Yeah, I think both Eva and I can share this. So we've seen a growing number of learners, of higher completion rate, more engagement in our program. And I think our MicroMasters program has really stood out during the pandemic, because people now have the time to differentiate and to search for more valuable, affordable, flexible, the combination of this kind of high value content, and they were able to identify MicroMasters like the best match for their needs.
Yes, we compare the data from during the pandemic, the course we were running during the pandemic, with the 3 previous courses in order to see the relevant statistics. And we observe not only an increase in the enrolled number of registrants, but more importantly, the increased number of verified learners, those learners that are committed to complete the program. The completion rate, as Tracy mentioned, also increased, and engagement. I can tell you that my team has been receiving the highest number of emails during the pandemic, because I think the students were really, really committed during that time and brought those questions that we have never seen before, because the level of detail they were through all of the material during the pandemic was really, really high. So very committed learners, higher completion rate, and engagement through the program during the pandemic. Yeah.
And just a follow-up question on that. So on campus for the master's program in supply chain management, do you feel as a program, were you more ready for the pandemic? Like you can shift, some courses online?
In our case, definitely the experience we had at CTL running the online program helps a lot to be able in just 2 weeks, because I think we moved to move the entire in-person on-ground program to be 100% online, live and synchronous. I want to make the differentiation, because it's not the same to provide asynchronous material videos than a synchronous live online interaction. But definitely the team worked really hard in just 2-3 weeks to be ready to deliver all of our in-person content to be online, synchronous, live. We did a tremendous effort, because to be honest, the content is exactly the same, but the format matters. I was teaching the same class in person and online during the pandemic, because we have a reduced group of learners that were allowed to be in class, some people that were online, and I need to prepare 2 completely different classes. Same content, but the format is completely different. For in-person, you need to highlight this in-person interaction and have this discussion. People raise their hand and you have this, you use the Blackboard. For online, I need to schedule more breaks and make it much more dynamic, because during 90 minutes it's impossible to have people with fully attention through the screen. So a lot of breaks, a lot of breakout rooms, dynamics. So the same class took kind of 2 times more to prepare to deliver online in a very dynamic, interactive way. So we did a tremendous effort to do that, but definitely our experience providing the MicroMaster helped us a lot to be ready to do that in just 2-3 weeks.
And Dan, I think you've touched on this, but as a person in the industry now who's hiring, how do you view, let's say, the MicroMasters in comparison with other certifications? Let's talk about that, and specifically like supply chain management.
Yeah, I think, I know people that have done, specifically CSCMP or other certifications that are similar. Personally, I view the MicroMasters pretty high because I know what it takes because I've been through it. I know sort of the engagement and the amount of time that you have to commit to just the fact that people are able to complete this while working full time, shows some expert time management skills and some determination because it's hard. I've made it through, but sometimes barely. So I certainly view it as a very, it stands out on a resume. People have been able to complete the MicroMasters, and I know the content as well. So I know sort of it covers end to end from software installation to demand planning to logistics and route optimization and all of these different topics. So I know that it's great content, and I know that anybody that has that certificate and has that credential is going to be a valuable asset to any company. So I certainly view it really highly. I'm sort of biased, obviously, because I went through the program, so I know what the material is. I think the MIT name goes a long way, and any credential from MIT is going to be viewed very highly. So I'd certainly say it's an asset to anybody considering completing the credential. It does make a difference on a resume, and I would certainly be more inclined to hire somebody with the credential than without. I can't speak specifically because I haven't done CSCMP to know really how a MicroMasters credential differentiates between a credential like that. But I know, like I said, I know that the content is there, and I know the engagement that it takes to complete it. So it's viewed very highly.
And Tracy or Dr. Eva, can we maybe highlight how evaluations are done or assessments in these courses? Like, is it, like a regular certification exam? Do you go somewhere to take the examination, or, obviously it's online?
Yes, through the MicroMaster, we are doing exams, homeworks. They have weekly homeworks that they need to complete every week. Then in our courses, we are offering a midterm and final exam. These are time exams that are with a limited duration, and learners need to take that in order to assess their knowledge. And at the end of the program, we are providing a comprehensive final and proctor exam, just to evaluate the entire concepts for the entire program, and it's a proctor exam. Every single thing is happening now online. The very first time we did a combination of in-person exams with online, but after doing that for a global program like the MicroMaster is, with more than 190 countries represented, definitely we move into the 100% online assessment mode. And now we have proctoring companies and software that help us to proctor learners, even though they are remotely taken from their home.
Yeah, so absolutely what Eva just said. For across all of our MicroMasters programs, the weekly homework, quizzes, midterm, and final is pretty standard. The only difference is out of our 5 MicroMasters programs, Eva's program and the data science MicroMasters both have a comprehensive proctored exam at the end of all the courses, when you finish all the courses, and that's proctored. And for the rest of the 3 programs, the proctored exam is at the end of each course. So you will have 5 or more small proctored exams versus a comprehensive proctor exam for Eva's program and the data science program. Yeah.
Thanks. And is there any specific age groups or regions that you see more participations of? So who's the ideal candidate for a MicroMasters? And then maybe the ideal candidate for a person coming in for the blended program?
So the ideal candidate for the MicroMaster is to be truly anyone from anywhere. The mission of this program is to democratize knowledge. You cannot imagine how happy we are when we, in the 5 years I have been running this program, we have 2 high schoolers graduating and finishing our MicroMaster, and we were so proud of them. We have the oldest person, I think, was close to the 80s. We were very proud of him too. So is a variety of ages and different backgrounds. In terms of countries, USA is one of the top represented countries. The second one is India, in our case, in our program, India. Then the third country used to be Mexico, Brazil, Canada. These are countries that are very well represented. But having said that, we have China is coming, growing up to, we have countries from all of 190 countries. However, the top represented are the ones I mentioned. In terms of age, the average or mean age is around 30, in between 20 to 35 is where we have the highest number of learners. But I said the range goes from 16 years old to almost 90 years old. For the blended is also an opportunity to open MIT to anyone from anywhere. Of course, you need admission, and you need to get admission. The MIT committee is looking at many different things. Is looking at their performance through the MicroMaster, and this is one of the top things, but they are also looking at their essay, or their master thesis capstone proposal, their recommendation letters, their interest, and we are looking for diversity, for a representation of what these programs that are intended to open learning to anyone are designed for.
Just to add on top of what Eva just said, the beauty of the MicroMasters is really like two parts. One is to attract, talents like Dan, who leverage MicroMasters content for his career development, and to also get a master's degree from MIT. And we also really stimulate this movement of lifelong learning, as Eva said. We've seen the youngest being in teenagers and the oldest, after retirement. And so really it's not just to learn for career advancement or masters, it's learn for fun as well. So that's the beauty of the MicroMaster. And for the blended masters, as Eva said, there is an admissions. And there's one thing I want to mention is like our development economics blended masters, the lead faculty has waived many traditional admission criteria, like a GRE GMAT is waived, and also your bachelor's degree is also waived. If you never were able to get a bachelor's degree, you can still apply to a master's in the development economics field. And we have admitted students in that with that background.
Yeah. I think another piece of relevance to these programs today are with how people are living healthier lives, leading to longer life expectancies. So we'll eventually maybe see more people at the older age, like after retirement, taking on these programs, right? So you retire, you still have like maybe 20 years in retirement where you can come, take one of these programs and maybe go to campus. Okay.
Yeah. Definitely. And these people are bringing their experience. These are people with a strong professional experience, and they are bringing this experience to the discussion forums. They are bringing this experience to the program too. We also have high-level professionals. We have some VPs taking our program too, and they are bringing their experience to the program, and they are enjoying because they really want to upskill and to learn some new machine learning techniques to deal with big data. So we also have this profile, and definitely they are bringing this their experience to the program too. So it's a win-win.
Okay, so I think we can open up the floor for questions from the audience. So I've received a few. So this is for Tracy and Dr. Eva. What new formats of engaging with content do you envision could be implemented in omnichannel education to help deliver the content more effectively? For example, virtual or augmented reality.
Oh, that's a great question. I definitely envision the future with a combination of formats, as I mentioned, because asynchronous education like the MicroMaster is very convenient. It's very flexible, affordable, accessible. So this is really convenient in order to prepare in advance materials. I also see the benefit of the live interaction. Can be online, can be on ground, but this live interaction can build certain skills and can also go further into the discussion, because the 100% asynchronous online is great, but it's more kind of discussing black and white things, not grays. It depends discussions. So for the in-person, definitely I see the opportunity to take advantage of more in-depth discussion, build skills that sometimes is tough to build just online. So definitely the combination of multiple formats and taking the best of both worlds. That's why I started the presentation saying that we need to, as instructors, to design the best format for the best content and decide, hey, this content is better to deliver in this way, this other content is better to deliver in a different way. So definitely I envision with the combination of different formats to provide this flexibility to learners and try to take the best of both worlds, because there are benefits in both ways to deliver education.
Yeah, just quickly to add that with the growing technology, in education, in online education platform, we will not be surprised. We can leverage a new learning mode, teaching mode, to innovate our content as well.
Yeah, we can take the analogy with the retailers. They are using augmented reality to improve their online customer experience. So probably the way to go in the future is also to include some augmented reality to improve our online delivery of education models.
Yeah. So here's a question. I think Dan, you'll be best to answer that. Given the format of the MicroMasters program, what did you do in your approach that you felt enabled you to really benefit from the program? And what did you do? And what do you feel you could have done differently?
Sure. So let's see. So during the format of the MicroMasters program, I think I made this point earlier around trying to apply, everything that I was learning to my job. So that was certainly important. What you find often is there's a little bit of a gap of translating formal education to actual business practice. I think any of us that have done a network design study in sort of SC2X know that that's never reality. Where we have a transshipment location, we've got 4 trucks going in and we have 4 DCs on the other side. And, the volumes and sort of the certainty in solving some of these problems is never the actual way that they're solved in business, and the data is never available to that extent. So I think my approach was, always trying to contextualize what was going on in the courses and try to apply what I was learning to, if it wasn't part of my job, it was, talking to somebody in my business that did that. So at the time I was working in demand management. So the forecasting, the inventory strategy components, those were really relevant. And I was able to contextualize that in my day-to-day job. But things like network design, I wasn't doing that. So I sort of made a point during the MicroMasters to try to educate myself on it, especially on topics like that, where I was learning the academic perspective, but didn't actually couldn't contextualize it in my business. I made a point to try to meet with people that worked in that space so that I could contextualize it a little bit better. I think sort of that's one approach that I took, and it's also something that I wish I had done a little bit better, because I find that really with any sort of continued education, there's so many offers out there on edX and other platforms. To be able to actually get the most value out of it, you can't just sort of take the course and then you just know it. You have to be able to apply it. I mean, I've tried to get good at coding in Python for 3 years since I finished the MicroMasters or since I finished at MIT, and I never have to do any coding in Python, so it's pretty hard to retain that knowledge. So I think that's sort of the big takeaway is if you want the education to make a difference here, then whatever you're learning, you have to figure out how you can connect it to something that you're doing. Because I think that day-to-day repetition and that way to apply it to real business problems is what actually makes you have a command of a topic, not just, solving a couple problem sets. But if I can, learn how to do a mixed integer linear program, which is, a big topic in SC2X that I think many people spend a lot of, sleepless nights trying to get their models to work. That's a big topic, but in being able to then apply that to, smaller problems in the business, it's not just network study, but you can use that technique to solve a bunch of different things. So I think that ability to contextualize problems and apply it to your day-to-day business is what, that's the advice that I would give anyone going through the program now.
Okay. A question for Tracy. What are the next areas of study that you foresee being developed in the MicroMasters curricula?
I think, the world can just guess, there's just certain topics, STEM topics and at MIT that are so popular. So we are looking into what kind of areas is possible to move forward with the MicroMasters topic. There are certainly internal requirements in order for us to develop MicroMasters, because we want to make sure first there's an internal credit pathway at MIT. So like, for example, we really want to develop an entrepreneurship MicroMasters in the past, but unfortunately there's no masters in entrepreneur at MIT. So unfortunately, we cannot develop MicroMasters. So MIT take this very seriously and I really want to make sure the content is rigorous enough, is real graduate level content. So we need to have a corresponding masters on campus. And so we are figuring out some of these requirements and to see what the best topic we can provide to the world and also to represent the best of MIT. So you can imagine within these STEM topics that, unfortunately, I can't really disclose because I don't really have the final answer yet.
Okay, so here's one. I think we can use it as a closure. How can people in the Arab world make the most benefit from participating in the MicroMasters? Since the audience is global, are there some case studies presented relatable to a global audience? I guess how can new regions basically make use of such programs?
So I would say the program we are delivering, we take into consideration the different cultures. It's a global program, so they will find examples from many different countries, and we try to provide that. In terms of take advantage of the region and the local region, we encourage students to organize study groups. So in our program, there are some study groups that spontaneously our learners initiate in Argentina, in Peru, in Egypt, in many different countries. So study groups for collaborating in learning, never collaborating assessment, but collaboration in learning is something that we definitely encourage. Our students spontaneously has been leading study groups in different areas. So this is something that definitely can complement to that. And then the program is designed, taking into consideration it's a global program. So we try our best to make it kind of illustrate examples from different countries. Yeah.
One thing I'd add to that, in addition to the study groups, is where you can take this, go through the experience with colleagues, try to find a study group with your own business. If you have colleagues that are interested in this, doing it together can be really helpful, just to have somebody, because that is a bit one of the drawbacks of online education, is that it's hard to facilitate that actual in-person discussion that you get when you are in person. I think MIT has done a great job of this through all the forums and all the discussions there. It's not a one-to-one replacement. I think we all realize that. So being able to find a few colleagues that are willing to go through the problems with you, not go through obviously the assignments, of course, you never do that, but they can go through the lectures each week, and having somebody to just discuss the topics with. And again, MIT has done a great job of making sort of discussions and breakouts and all of these things, that are sort of innovations in digital learning. They've done a great job with that, but having somebody that sits near you in the office that you can go chat with about how are you thinking about the content this week, can be really helpful. So I have a few colleagues, and I know that even there's some programming that Ava talked about earlier around bringing several people from a company to do the program at the same time. I think we did that, and I thought it was very valuable to have a few colleagues to chat with.
Yeah, totally. You see big value, when you're studying with someone else, for sure. So as we're hitting the 1 hour mark, is there any final remarks from speakers?
Just wanted to encourage anyone from anywhere to join our program to learn more about supply chain management. Yes, we are always happy to receive new learners, grow the program. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, same here. Just, just want to repeat, there is no admissions required for the MicroMasters. Anyone from anywhere can give a try. There is some prerequisite in terms of knowledge, like math skills, but you can find out all this requirement on our website, but there's no admissions, no GRE or anything required for you to enroll into a MicroMaster. Just give a try.
Yeah, I just reiterate, I think this was the best career decision I've ever made. Lowest barrier to entry, biggest payback of anything I've done in my career. So would highly encourage people to seek out the opportunity. And if people are listening and want to connect on LinkedIn or chat further about this, I'm certainly open to the discussion.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I'd like to conclude this session by thanking our speakers. On behalf of my colleagues at the MIT AAA, I'd like to thank this event sponsor as well, Hygiene. We would also like to thank the MIT Alumni Association for their continuous support on hosting these webinars. Thank you, Arthur Grau from the MIT Center for Transportation Logistics for helping us out, put this together. And finally, thank you to our listeners for joining us today. For more information, you can visit micromasters.mit.edu. And then for the SEM program, there's ctl.mit.edu. Our next webinar will be on the 29th of June, titled Investing in Startups and SMEs in the Middle East, Insights from an Evolving Ecosystem. The webinar will be moderated by my fellow board member, Salman Al-Dukhail. Registrations are now open. Thanks again, and keep an eye out for other announcements and events. Stay safe, everyone, and goodbye.